back for another What Would Have Happened If This Were in Real Life RhinoTMRTGamePlay series YouTube video. Now, I've been trying and trying over and over and over again, which I guess is kind of very obvious for me to, do and all this and all. And I guess it kind of does make sense. Now, here I was thinking because, I wanted to go back to the original, the place where I used to do the What Would Have Happened If This Were in Real Life RhinoTMRTGamePlay series YouTube videos. But I'm just gonna, because sometime later in the future I might come back to that. Now I also was hoping to do What Would Have Happened If This Were in Real Life RhinoTMRTGamePlay series YouTube videos based that were prequel movie ideas, which I guess is kind of very obvious. And here you can easily see why. So yeah, I guess it kind of does make a lot of sense. I mean, I figured that I would do this one, and now I've done it. So this is what would have happened if the Sorcerer's Apprentice 2 movie were in real life. Now we come into the beginning where Dave and his girlfriend and Balthazar and Veronica are all the four of them are all enjoying themselves. Balthazar and Veronica got married, and then Balthazar and Veronica got married, and both Dave's girlfriend also got engaged for right after the last movie. So yeah, I guess it kind of does make sense. Now, I know that The Sorcerer's Apprentice probably didn't get a lot of, a very good reception to get, like, a sequel. However, this is the opposite of if they had, sequel, You kind of already get what I'm saying. So, Dave is already enjoying himself after looking through all the other areas. And actually he walks around the area, and it just so happens that he finds a different Dave from it. He finds out a different Dave called an evil Dave from the future that's actually trained under, from a different reality that's trained under the Horvat of that, that's actually trained under the evil Balthazar of that reality. So he eventually finds his way to the good Dave's reality, and then the movie intro, is a movie logo intro. The Sorcerer's Apprentice 2 appears on there. Then we eventually see Dave and Evil Dave face off in each other, kind of like a cowboy fight, where they had, like, in the Wild West times, the cowboys had the two guns, and then you had to, like, in order to have bulletproof armor, in order to survive, a gunfight from the Wild West, which I guess kind of does make a lot of sense. I figured that this would be the idea, and it's actually a perfectly good idea. Evil Dave tells Dave that there are other different realities in which they are a lot different than the Dave and Balthazar that are in this one. Yeah, and it actually looks very great for some reason. Now, keep in mind that there is going to be a Doctor Strange joke, a funny Doctor Strange joke in the Sorcerer's Apprentice 2, where Dave is all like, "Oh, so you're like Doctor Strange now, huh, Evil Dave? Evil Dave, And then he's all like, no, I'm nothing like him. Well, technically, I know I'm nothing like him because I'm Evil Dave. I, am a lot different." So, yes, so then, of course, Dave runs away from Evil Dave, only to find out that good Horvat actually finds him and rescues him, and tells him that he's the good guy version of Horvat from a different reality. So this is kind of how it's going from here. A good Horvat from a different reality actually saves David and has to get him to Balthazar to tell him that there's a different reality in which Evil Dave and Evil Balthazar planning to destroy their world. Just when you thought, and I mean it, just when you thought that other villain from the first Sorcerer's Apprentice movie was more powerful, well, think again. Think again, because Evil Dave and Evil Balthazar are like totally powerful, and they have to find and it's going to be hard for Dave and Balthazar and Good Horvat to get rid of them. So now keep in mind that it will. Now keep in mind that I was kind of hoping to do this one. I was trying to do this one at one time, but I couldn't because it was very. Yeah, I tried doing this one time, but it didn't work, and then I ended up doing another one. But now I'm doing it, which is the best part. Thumbs up, which is actually just like the YouTube sign of the thumbs up sign, which I guess is kind of very obvious. So Dave and Good Horvat eventually leave, and Evil Dave Evil Dave sees nothing but a few couple of humans trying to run away from their reality, trying to run away from them. Dave and Good Horvat are both eventually found by Balthazar, who has been flying his eagle, that is still his, but it was very obvious. Yeah, Balthazar eventually gives both Dave and Good Horvat a ride, and tells them the reason why Balthazar is all like, all is very obvious. The reason for this is because Balthazar is all like, man, I accidentally was trying to use my magic to find a different reality that can help us protect the world from dying. But it turns out it didn't work out well. So now Balthazar eventually now Balthazar, David, and Good Horvat also have to find this weapon that can put an end to Evil Dave and Evil Balthazar. And then everything can go back the way it was. Dave says goodbye to his girlfriend that I don't remember the name of, but for good reasons. And then, of course, Dave, Balthazar, and Good Horvat eventually go into their own areas and whatnot. And they also face the evil Horvat. However, after battling and fighting evil Horvat, he eventually dies. So that's kind of how it goes here. And then they go through all different, caves and islands, until when they find one cave and island that has the weapon that they need to put an end to Evil Dave and Evil Balthazar. Yeah, so they eventually find this weapon, and then they eventually head all the way back to New York, or Manhattan, well, the city where the first movie was. And it just so happens that a lot of people that a lot of other magic users other sorcerers just like Dave and Balthazar and Good Horvat are by their side. So then we have one big fight and battle scene, the fight between Dave Balthazar and Good Horvat and all the other good sorcerers in their main world versus the evil Dave and the evil Balthazar. And then it just so happens that Evil Dave and Evil Balthazar have captured that they have captured Dave's girlfriend, the person. And it just so happens that before Dave's girlfriend is about to die, and you kind of know the whole sequel thing where the female character dies in the sequel thing. I mean, you kind of already get that happening. But before that happens, Good Horvat actually is the one that saves. Good Horvat is actually the one. Technically, Veronica, Good Horvat are actually the ones that. Veronica is actually the one that saves Dave's girlfriend from dying, and then eventually Dave and Balthazar, they eventually use the weapon to destroy evil Dave and evil Balthazar, and then everything else is perfectly good. So they're eventually gone and never to be seen. Then a few couple of years later around the line, and then they find out that the evil Horvat has eventually returned, and after a few couple of years later, it turns out that he was faking his death, and now he takes control of Evil Dave's and Evil Balthazar's army, and army of evil sorcerers, and then they plan to take over the world rather than just destroying it. And so yeah, this is kind of going to be one of those movies that is very different, but at least it's still perfectly fine. So yeah. Dave and Balthazar are all like, wait a minute, but I thought we stopped the evil Horvat, the evil version of Horvat in our reality a long time ago. Well, Balthazar says, well, I didn't know. Turns out he faked his stuff. That's how it rolls. So then we of course get another scene where Dave and his girlfriend are all like, you didn't save me, but Veronica, Balthazar's wife, did. Yes, I know. Yes, I know. Which is what Dave says. Well, the good Dave, the real one from the main world, which I guess kind of does make a lot of sense. So Dave, Balthazar, and all the other good Horvat, and all the other good sorcerers of their main world, they eventually have another big fight and battle scene, and suddenly this time it's versus the evil Horvat, now taking control of Evil Dave's and Evil Dave and Evil Balthazar's army of evil sorcerers. So they eventually have one big fight and battle scene that lasts for a lot of minutes, and maybe a few couple of minutes. I'd say around 40 to 60 minutes of the left time. So yeah, I guess it kind of does make a lot of sense. So somewhere around that line, I guess it seems highly very great. So yeah, I just assumed that I would do this one, and yeah, now I'm doing it. So yeah, that's very great. And then Dave and Balthazar are all like winning a fight and all, and suddenly this time, while Veronica almost dies, and then she eventually dies, and then Balthazar eventually, banishes, evil Horvat to the reality where the evil Dave and the evil Balthazar were. And then everything else goes back to normal. The world is all saved, but one thing is sad. So one thing is sad from now is that Balthazar lost Veronica. They all, honor her grave and all and everything. They honor her death and all. Kind of is the very obvious way. And then they all party, and then they have a good time together, and they live happily ever after. The end. And then we get a post-credits scene where Evil Horvat now, is very different and all. And he has a son now that will eventually continue his work. So yeah. Anyways, that was the What Would Have Happened if the Sorcerer's Apprentice 2 movie were in real life. Anyways, that's it for today. Peace out. Bye-bye.